Today's topic is about the power of a name. So basically, what happens is this is a very specific phenomenon and it doesn't really apply to all players. It can apply to a general broad spectrum of players. But generally, what happens is when you get a great player, like a true, you either get a great player or perhaps a player who's just very hot at the moment. And eventually, what happens is this guy will do something amazing over and over and over and over again. And all the other pro players are watching this, and eventually, all the other pro players will eventually come to like this subconscious conclusion that this guy will always be able to do this no matter what I do. So you kind of just accept the fact that this guy will kill you, or this guy will kill you. So the best way, the best way I've seen this described is a quote from David Graeber. He's like an anthropologist. The quote goes, "You can't convince the world you can breathe underwater and then breathe underwater. You can convince the world you are the king of France and then become the king of France. Politics is that dimension in social life in which things are true because enough people believe in them." So it's basically magic. Magic works by making people believe it works, but also that it only works because people do not believe it works only because people believe it works. So basically, for like a more concrete example, that'd be like money, laws, religion, government, stuff like that. That's kind of how, or like societal norms, culture, like those are all things that are like a similar vein. But I want to talk about esports specifically. So the reason I brought up this topic today is because Daigo was playing in the E League tournament today, and Daigo himself, if you ever go back to watch his Street Fighter 4 games, it was very obvious at the time that he was kind of abusing the power of his name. And what I mean by that is he would be doing these stupid options, but because everybody respected the fact that he was a smart player, he could get away with these stupid options because they didn't expect it. They didn't expect it coming, or they would always give him way too much respect. Like infiltration, the first time he ran into Daigo did this like huge PR campaign where he's like, "Yeah, I'm stunning infiltration. I've got the perfect counter. He's not gonna know what's coming for him. He will never see this coming." And infiltration, like, what the fuck? Because infiltration at the time, he was a new player, and he was from a scene where there were no other players, so he's like a literal one man army. So he wasn't really sure what Daigo was gonna do to him. So they played, and then what ended up happening was Daigo just did the same shit he normally did, but infiltration was so stuck in his own mind that he thought it was like some kind of weird mind game until it was too late. And then infiltration realized, oh wait, Daigo was just bullshitting the entire time. Then he runs all the way back to the tournament and then beats the shit out of Daigo to win that tournament. Another example from the FGC would be something like Justin Wong and like his Wong factor. Because generally, what happens is, plenty of people have won like comebacks from like the last pixels, but none have done it so regularly and so often as Justin Wong, especially in like the North American region. So what would happen is like every time he got into like the last pixel, the other guy would get much more nervous than before, because not only are you playing like a great player, you're playing a player who is known for these situations, and these situations generally make you look like an idiot. So like Yipes, like he famously called it, like Justin Wong the glory stealer, because the most famous example of this was his like Cyclops solo comeback against like Yipes' entire like team. But thing is, like, nobody remembers who won the Evo. The person who won the Evo was Yipes, and the reason Yipes calls Justin Wong the glory stealer is because Justin Wong basically stole the glory of that tournament, because even though he lost, that's the only thing people will remember from that tournament now is Justin Wong doing that crazy comeback. And then you move on to like Marvel 4, and like Justin Wong just keeps doing these crazy comebacks. And yeah, part of it is because he is like really attuned to that kind of style. He really is attuned to like figuring out ways to make a comeback. But it's also because players just naturally like give him more respect. Like they're kind of afraid of him. I think the best example I've ever seen of this was actually last year in CS:GO. Shox was playing in like his super god form during like the height of the G2, height of G2, and it was on Inferno and Dust 2. There's probably highlights. It's probably just put like Shox and Dust 2 versus Luminosity, and then what happens is like Shox would be like the only person there, but Shox would like go into the side and Dust 2. I remember this, and then he would like kill everybody, kill the entire team and win a 1v4 easily. And then the next map he goes to Inferno, and then it's like a 1v5, but the one is Shox. So Shox comes in alone on the B side of Inferno, and everybody is scared out of their fucking minds of like Shox coming in to kill them. That they kind of just like hole up in their little hole up behind their walls, and it feels like they're kind of just praying, "Oh, please God, please don't come out of the please don't find me, please don't peek me." And then like Shox is like, whatever, and just kind of walks in and headshots all of them. So it's a very it's like a very funny move because if you think about it, you could replace Shox with a equally skilled player as long as it's a different person, and I don't think Luminosity players will play the exact same way as they did against Shox, but because it was Shox and because he had this well-known reputation doing it, it kind of got into their heads like, oh, he can do this, and because they believe he can do this, he eventually does do it. It's like a weird cycle, but but the problem with like this kind of like modeling, I guess, is it's very dependent on the player. So for instance, like a player like Pasha, he would never give a fuck. I think he's because he's super confident. He'll never believe like he can lose a battle against anybody. So that's why he always does all the peeking and stuff, because he truly believes he won't lose. So any like reputation any other player has will never get to Pasha. Or I guess a League of Legends example would be somebody like Mickey, who like famously for whatever reason like he won't beat Faker, but he'll have a better chance against Faker, even though all the other mid laners in like that region were better than Mickey at the time. And it was probably because he was kind of like an idiot or like kind of fearless. It's kind of hard to say because I don't really read much about like his mentality or never saw anything about it, but that's kind of like the attitude. Or a very modern example would be like Zipnix when he does his clutches. Like it feels like not only is Zipnix like calculating all the correct moves, but like all the opponents know he's calculating all the correct moves to make the right win, and it kind of gets into their own heads, and they're kind of like, oh shit, Zipnix is coming. It's kind of like a weird sort of thing like that. And then it also works in reverse. I actually think if you want to know an example, it would be Virtus Pro Online. I feel like whenever a team plays Virtus Pro Online, I feel like they get like an instant confidence boost. Like, oh my god, it's Virtus Pro Online. We could beat these guys. They're so bad online. I'm not actually sure if this is the case because nobody's ever interviewed anybody about this, but I feel like it has to be the case by now because they've been regulated twice and they just keep losing these online games. So I feel like it's a very likely case where it's both that VP is bad online, and the fact that they're bad online has convinced everybody that they can beat VP online, and it becomes like this kind of weird cycle. So, yeah, that's about it. Later.